Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the I See Old People podcast. I'm Dr. Bruce, your host, and today is November 23rd, 2023. Today is my birthday, my 64th birthday today. So the podcast is officially 4 years old as of today, as I started the podcast on my 60th birthday. And the idea of the podcast was to track my life from 60 to 70. I'm looking quite forward to the next 6 years, and I hope that they're going to be a bit better health-wise than the first 4 years of this 10-year project have been. I certainly have had my fill of little things, but enough that it seems to have constantly been something going on. The worst, of course, being the tinnitus. My tinnitus is terrible. It's just screaming most of the time now. And I told you in my last podcast that I had a CT scan of my head, which was results as normal. So I think I got pushed back in the queue quite a bit. And now I do have an appointment with a otolaryngologist, and he is going to take another look at me and see if he can find some cause for my tinnitus. But my appointment, because you have to remember I'm in Ontario, Canada, my appointment is March 24th, 2024. So it's quite a few months away that I have to wait to see the specialist. And I plan on doing that because I really don't have any other choice. I've tried a lot of other things, the white noise machine, the supplements, the vitamins. Nothing has helped this ringing in my ears. So thank God it's one of my few health problems. For the most part, I'm pretty healthy. I did pull my hamstrings again playing pickleball, so that's twice that I've damaged my hamstrings. This one was on the opposite leg than the first time. So I don't know if pickleball is for me, but I am going to try to get out there again. Probably not again this week because it's still sore to go up and down stairs. But possibly I could get out again next week. So, but third time happening. If it happens again, I think that's going to be the end of my pickleball career, which is unfortunate because I really liked pickleball. One of the things I mentioned in one of my last podcasts, and look at me with 3 podcasts after a year of not doing any. I'm just Mr. Content all of a sudden. So what I want to talk about today is my mother. I mentioned that my mother had passed away. She passed away in June. And I wanted to talk just a little bit about her, tell you a story about her. When I went to the service up in Thunder Bay for my mother, there were about 70 people there. And only 2 people in the entire crowd, the entire group, were not related. So it shows what a large family I came from. When I grew up, I had 36 first cousins, and they all lived in the Thunder Bay area. Well, it was called Port Arthur at the time. I think I had one cousin who lived in Fort William, the Twin City. But in Port Arthur, they were all there. They were my friends. That's who we hung around with. That's what we did holidays with. Christmas, summer holidays, going out to camp, all of those things. I did those with my cousins. So I got to see so many of my cousins. Many of them I didn't even recognize. Many of them I hadn't seen in 40 years, 50 years. A lot of them I saw at my dad's funeral, which was in 1999. But, even that was 23, 24 years ago now. So my mom was a widow for 24 years before she passed away. And what really was clear to me at the service, my sister gave a wonderful, wonderful eulogy to my mother. And she spoke about all of the different things that my mother was doing in her life. And what I realized was how much I didn't really know the older woman mother, the older widow mother that well. Almost all of my memories are from a young mother, when I was young, when I was still living in Thunder Bay, when I was still living at home, because I left when I was 17. I went to university when I was 17, and I never returned. So, and I knew my mother and father through visits. They used to come and visit me and my family, my young family particularly, because they wanted to see their grandchildren. But that was only twice, maybe 3 times a year. I'd go up there once, they'd come down here, this way twice. And then when my dad passed, my mom came a few more times, but not really that many. And then she hasn't really traveled for the last 10 years. Probably my daughter's wedding was the last time she was down this way, and they've been married over 10 years now. So it was pretty clear to me with all the stories and all the nods of the heads and everyone that my mother had quite a life as an adult and as a widow. She traveled a lot. She went on cruises with her sisters. She went with her daughter, my sister, on trips. She had a real life that I really wasn't that aware of. So it was really neat to sit there and listen to it. And then when everybody was asked, "Was anyone like to say anything else?" after my sister was finished, a couple people stood up. And I really was going to stand up. I was ready to stand up and tell you this story that I'm going to tell you, but I second-guessed myself because I thought, this is a story from, when I'm a child. It makes it sound like it's a story about me. And it is a story about me, but it's a story about my mother as well. So I wish I had told everyone this story, but I'll go ahead and tell you right now. So I would have been probably in grade 5. Okay, so I'm in grade 5 and I go to a school called St. Joseph's School. Now, St. Joseph's School is one of those old structures. It doesn't have a gymnasium. They've all been torn down now. My grandmother actually went to that school when she came from Italy. A lot of Italian immigrants came to the New World, and the way they learned English was they went to kindergarten. And then they would fail kindergarten, and then they would repeat it. And then by the time they did it a second time, they knew English. And then they moved on to grade 1. This is one of the reasons a lot of my friends are about a year older than me, because I met a lot of them in grade 1, and they'd already gone to kindergarten twice, where I only went to kindergarten once because I knew how to speak English. So my grandmother went to that school, and so did all her children, including my father. So they all went to St. Joseph's School, and then, of course, myself, my family, part of my family went there as well. So there were other choices around. There was a Protestant school or a public school down the road called Queen Elizabeth, and some of my cousins went to Queen Elizabeth, but most of us went to St. Joe's. So St. Joe's was less than half a block from my house, the house that I grew up in, and the house that my mother died in. It was the only house she ever knew in Thunder Bay. They bought it before they were married. I believe it was a gift from my grandmother. I'm not sure about that. I've been told that. Maybe not a gift, but it was my grandmother's house. She sold it to my father. So my father then, renovated it many times over the years to make it suitable for a family of 6. And that's where we lived, and it was wonderful, and that's where my mother died. She lived her life in that one house. She never moved in her entire adult life. So St. Joseph's School is about half a block from the front door of my house. So you walk out the front door, you look to the right, there's John Street right there, and then on the other side of John Street was St. Joseph's School. Now, St. Joseph's School is long gone. It's been gone for many, many years. It's been replaced by it's a women's shelter type of a facility. It's a women's retreat, mostly for natives, I think. But I'm not even sure about that because that all happened when I wasn't up there. But when I was living there, when I was a little kid in grade 5, I was looking through a Life magazine at home, and I noticed this picture of Barbarella. Okay, Jane Fonda was in a movie called Barbarella. They had a full-page ad for Barbarella. And if you can remember the movie Barbarella, it was not pornography, but it was pretty risque. And the full-page picture showed Jane Fonda in a black catsuit. Okay, very provocative. Of course, I'm just a young kid. I'm like 12 years old. Maybe I might not even be 12 yet. I might even still be 11. If it was in the spring, I was 12. If it was in the spring, I was 11. If it was in the fall, I was in. If it was in the fall, I was 11. If it was in the spring, I would have been 12 because November 23rd is my birthday. So either way, a teacher sees me showing this picture that I took out of a regular magazine, like Life magazine, that people read all the time. It was not a X-rated picture. It was not pornography. Like I said, it was just pretty risque. So I'm showing this to my friends in the schoolyard. Big mistake number 1. I mean, I go to this Catholic school. The nuns are out there in the schoolyard. They're just looking for an excuse to send you to the office. I mean, it was a tough time when you were a young, active boy going to a Catholic school, and they sure didn't like this. So the teacher saw this picture, sent me to the office. So she sent me to see Sister Angela. Her name was Sister Angela when I started school, but this was a time when there was all kinds of new freedoms given to nuns, and nuns started to be able to not have to wear the face shields and the head gear, and they also got to use their real names. So in the time I was in St. Joseph's, Sister Angela became Sister Olga because that was her real name. So I went to see Sister Olga because she had already changed her name by then, and she was the principal of the school. So I was sent into the principal's office. Sister Olga was furious with me. She called me a number of names, degraded me significantly, told me I was worthless, piece of garbage. You got to remember, at this time, corporal punishment was allowed, so she could hit me with a ruler as much as she wanted, and she could pretty much say anything she wanted to me. So this was a time when the teachers ruled outright, and you didn't have any say in the matter. So she took it over the line, though. So she didn't only hit me with a strap and berate me to the point of tears. She actually made me phone my mother. She picked up the phone. She handed it to me. She made me dial my home number, and my mother answers, because this was a time when mothers were at home. When my mother got a part-time job to go to work, she waited till we were all in high school before she did that. So when we were in grade school, she was still at home. And even when we were in high school, she took a night job. She didn't take a day job. She spent her time during the day at home. So I call my mother, and Sister Angela makes me ask my mother this question. Do you still want me? I'm so bad. Do you still want me? My mother does not answer me. She does not answer me. I hear the phone click. I hand the phone back to Sister Olga, who goes to put it to her ear and sees that it's just the dial tone. My mother's not there. So she hangs up the phone, and she doesn't think twice about it. But we just happen to be sitting in a position where we're looking out the front window of her office. Her office faced the front, it faced John Street, so basically it faced my house. And I could see my mother coming out of my front door. And my mother was walking at a pretty fast clip. And I could tell from a distance, a half a block away, that my mother was not happy. Now, I've never seen my mother run, but this was probably as close as I've ever gotten to it, because she was walking quickly and she was angry. So Sister Olga and I are standing there now. We stood up. We're watching my mother walk. She walks towards the school. She comes through the front gates of the school. She walks to the front door. So then she disappears because we can't see her now. So then Sister Olga and I both at the same time turn around and face the door of her office. I can hear the footsteps coming down the hallway. She doesn't knock. She opens the door. She immediately takes control of the room. She tells me to go wait outside. I go outside. She shuts the door behind me. And whatever she said to Sister Olga in that room, I will never know, because she never spoke to me about it. But nothing was ever done about that picture. Sister Olga never brought it up again. I was never disciplined for it. My mother walked out of that office, closed the door again behind her, grabbed me by the hand, and said, "Let's go, we're taking the day off today." And I left the school with her. And that was the end of it. And my mother never talked to my dad about this, never brought it up at the dinner table, never was a discussion. She never spoke to me again about it. But to see her in that mode, that mother, don't mess with my kid mode, to see her protect me to such a degree, that memory, it was embedded in my brain, and it's been there forever. And that was the most wonderful thing that could have ever happened, because I know Sister Olga was hoping that my mother would take her side and scream at me on the phone and basically tell me she didn't want me. Sister Olga was pretty wrong on that one. Sister Olga looked like a fool trying to get my mother to say something about me, or me to have to beg for my mother's forgiveness. My mother forgave me because my mother loved me and cared for me, but it was never so clear as that day. Never, ever so clear as that day. And I'll remember it forever. Not only her walking up the steps, but looking over at Sister Olga and seeing, I don't think it was fear in her eyes, but she was confused. She didn't understand what was happening, because she assumed that the parent would fall into line with her. And when she saw my mother walking towards her, she, for a moment, she had doubt in her mind, and she was concerned that she might have done the wrong thing. And believe me, nuns never think they've done the wrong thing. So it was amazing to watch. It was amazing to be part of. I wish I had shared it at the ceremony. I think everyone would have got a good chuckle out of it and would have enjoyed the story. But I didn't want to make the story about me. I wanted to make it about my mom. And it wasn't until I thought about it later that it really is about my mom. I just happened to be there. So that was it. I mean, other than that, I mean, what memories do I have of my mother? I mean, she was a wonderful lady. She took great care of us. She had very limited resources, and yet, we always had everything we ever needed. We never felt we were going without. We never felt that we were missing out on anything. It wasn't until I went to high school and I met a few rich kids that I realized that we were pretty poor. I didn't even know it. I didn't know it until I met a rich kid. So up until then, I just thought everybody was like us, and we were happy. It was a wonderful family. I guess only one more thing to talk about is how much things have changed, because my mom talks very, very little about my youth. I know she'd had 3 kids in 4 years. She didn't want another child. She said it openly to me. She said if the birth control pill had been invented 2 years earlier, I would never be here. But luckily for me, the birth control didn't show up until 1960. The birth control pill didn't show up until 1960, and I was born in 1959. So I squeaked by that one, thank goodness, because I would have hated to have missed this life. I've had a hell of a life. But my mother did tell me about what it was like to have me as a child. So she's had 3 successful pregnancies. So I'm her 4th pregnancy. She goes to hospital. She has me naturally. She's in hospital for 8 days, not because of any complications, but that's just what they did. And her doctor felt that she was getting run down from running around after those three babies at home, and didn't want to send her home. So he basically had the authority to force her onto bed rest. So she said there she was for 8 days, completely healthy, 100% fine, could have gone home on day 1. Instead, she stayed 8 days in the hospital, and she sat around drinking coffee and smoking cigarettes with all the other pregnant ladies that were having babies. And I just thought, yeah, that's a scene. The smoke-filled maternity ward with women who have been sitting there for 8 days because they need a rest from their hectic and busy lives. It was just an amazing story. All of my kids were born, and my wife, they were born, my wife and I just went home the same day. We did have them in hospital, but the next generation, we haven't even bothered with that. We just have them at home now. So that's my story about my mom. I miss her so much. I loved her so much. I wish I'd called her more. Especially on her last year of life, I wish I'd been there more. I was negligent. I was not there enough. I didn't visit enough. I didn't phone enough. So I do regret that. I love her and I miss her. She's happy now. She's with my dad. She's dancing up there with him in heaven. And she's finally back with him. Because I know how much she missed him, and I miss her, and I miss him too. Yeah, I'm 64 years old today, and you still miss your parents. And I was lucky to have her for as long as I did. I'm a fortunate man. So if you've listened to the end, I love you, and I really appreciate it, and I thank you for that. And so that's it. That's the story of my mom coming to St. Joseph's School and telling Sister Olga in no uncertain terms to to back off, girl, and leave my son alone. And I couldn't have been prouder. So anyway, I'll talk to you next time with more insight into this old man. 6 years to go in this project. What's going to happen? How's it going to end up? It'll be interesting. I hope you're along for the ride. Thanks a lot. Bye.